don't do it alone. And if you think that you can do it alone and you don't have any experience, there's a better chance you will end up almost failing or failing. Might as well just spend the money. I'm very successful. I still have mentors. I still have business coaches, and you stick with it. That's how you become successful and not get frayed out to the edges.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we're so pleased to have Michael Stohler with us. Michael, welcome.
How you doing, guys? It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, well, thanks again, Michael, for being on the Road Less Traveled Show. To start with, let's just get into your background, tell our listeners a little bit about what your first career was and how long you're in that line of work.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a small-town Indiana farm boy, so didn't have a lot of ambitions, but the one thing, I just dreamed about flying, and got into flying, got my pilot license at age 17, commercial, then became an airline pilot, and then got hurt. And the thing is, my wife has a good job, so I was like, well, what do I do with my money? So I just got started in some real estate investing. It's like, little single family, little duplex, things that I could afford. And I got injured on the job flying and realized, I said, no wonder I'm not making any money. These guys are like nickel and diming me to death. So I fired them, because I knew I was going to be on a 4 or 5 month disability. And then I was like, this is kind of fun. So I ended up during that time period selling that property and bought something bigger. And I was like going, wow, okay, now I'm almost there. And went back and realized that my arm just wasn't working right, as far as the flying. So I ended that career, and then bam, if it wasn't for that first injury, I might not be where I'm at now, but now I'm just having a lot of fun.
Well, actually, can you go into a little bit more about what you've transitioned into then with the real estate?
Sure. Yeah. You started out just some single family houses, and I've been out here in Arizona for 20 years. When I was back in Indiana, I had thought about it, and bought some single family houses and just burned to the ground, because I did that during, I call it the PG days, which is the pre-Google. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't Google how to be a landlord. There was no help in small town Indiana. Buying part was easy. I fried at being a landlord. Fast forward, to the airlines. I bought single family house, then a 4-plex. When I was on disability, I sold that one, a 7-plex, then an 8-plex, then a 28-plex. And then it was just 50-plex, then just boom, 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 just kept going up and up and up. And 6-7 years ago, when the cap rates were starting to get really high, really low, I was getting just these offers, ridiculous offers for my properties, just out of the blue. And I'm like, no, I'm playing golf now. I'm enjoying, I'm making a good living. I'm not doing anything. I have people working for me. I don't want to. And then they finally said, hey, how about this amount? And I was like, holy crap. Okay. I'd be a fool, especially this one property I had for 10 months, and I made $860,000 off of it net. And I was like, and then we sold another one. I'm like, okay, do I want to now buy and be someone else's, angel, or do I transition into something else? And, as your listeners know, and you guys know, that networking is it. And throughout my years, I always kind of kept on tabs with these guys that were in hospitality. It's kind of intriguing. And that's when I realized, it's like, what? I talked to a guy that was in hospitality, and I said, teach me. I have money. And so that's how I made the transition into hotels, and love it. And what I did was I said, you don't have to do this, but I want you to run it, because I don't know anything about hotels. But for doing that and teaching me, I'll actually give you a cut on the back end. And you get some property management funds. So, to entice him to teach me.
Right. And what kind of assets were you going after? Were they mom and pa hotels? Were they chain brands or?
Yeah, chain brands. I like the franchises. They're a absolute pain sometimes to deal with, and what I teach some of my students and on my own podcast is not every franchise is the same. There are some that, man, I've learned that you just they're bad, but some of them are absolutely wonderful, and some of them are like they know that they're the Bentley or the Rolls Royce, and they act like it. So it's different. But we like the franchise model because everyone, the commercials, the marketing, the booking reservation system, the rewards members. If you go with the Wyndham, they have 93 million rewards customers. So I have 93 million potential customers.
Wow.
If I did an independent, I'd be competing with that. So it's a little bit harder.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So Michael, you exited out of the individual properties you had purchased, and now you're just doing hotels exclusively. Is that right?
We do have some single family homes, but I'm no longer doing just a straight rental.
Gotcha.
I do more of like a lease option.
Okay.
So they're on their own. They do their own maintenance. They do their own stuff. So I'm not dealing with the day to day.
I follow you. All right. And as far as the hotel side, somebody else runs the day to day? Obviously, you've got an operating a partner company or whatever. So do you have other owners in these properties with you, or is it really just you?
Yeah. One of them I have, I did a joint venture. I had a guy come in and said, "Hey, I'm tired of multifamily." I'm like, "Yeah, get it. And here's some money. I want to do a joint venture." I'm like, "Okay." And then we have syndications.
Okay.
On the others, and it's that's nice because now what I learned was in the very beginning, I did it the hard way and the long way. I did it with my own money. All that multifamily, all those years, it was just my money. And then I finally went to a good friend of mine that using other people's money. I was like going, "Oh my goodness, I can." Wow, this is great. So that's how it taught me how to do the syndications. And
okay. Yeah, your own money only goes so far. And if you can figure out how to leverage other people's money, and you're making investors money along the way as well, you're giving them a great return. Well, there you go. Boom. So, Michael, as you look back and, perhaps it was in your flying days, can you think of a funny story that kind of made you, well, unfortunately, obviously you hurt yourself, like you said, but is there a funny story you can share?
The flying story, probably the funniest is that I tell everyone is we're flying back from Mexico City back into Houston, where I was based. And we're in the cake, the holding pattern. And they're like going, "Well, we think it's still hailing around, but there's no lightning. Give it a shot." I'm like, "Oh, yep, let's give it a shot." So we go down, and a couple seconds into the muck, all of a sudden you just, airplanes are aluminum cans. So all of a sudden we just get bombarded with hail, and I hear the flight attendant right behind. They sit right behind me. She screams, and then I hear. All you can hear is like, even through my headset, the whole airplane starts screaming because they're all looking at the flight attendant and they're like, "Well, if the flight attendant screams, that means we're going to die." So we get on the ground. I'm like going, "What in the world was that?" And she goes, "Well, it scared me." And I'm like, "But," she goes, "But the funny part," because we're coming from Mexico City, she goes, "I have never seen 100 people whip out the rosary at the same time and do the sign of the cross in unison as they're screaming." So I was like, so it was kind of funny, but I was like, please don't scream like that. People look at you for confidence.
Right. Yeah, keep that to your inner monologue, not your outer monologue. Oh man, wow.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, Mike, I think touched on a little bit what was kind of a deciding factor to get you from the airline career was, started with the injury and then you had some time off to think about that. But as you progress either from the airlines to the real estate or from the multifamily to the hotel model, kind of what was your thought process on that and why? How did you make that transition and end up where you are today?
Yeah, the biggest thing was I'm based out here in Arizona. And at that time, we were getting a lot of Canadians and a lot of people from California and Northeast coming in and saying, wow, 3.5 cap is great. So they were just buying things even back then, and they were just driving it down. And then when I got these unsolicited offers, I was like, I was used to 7%. I was used to like some of the old stuff. And I was like, I just cannot wrap myself around, because I'm now getting close to where my interest rates and my cap rates are right there.
Mm-hmm.
And now it becomes more of a speculation type thing. It's like I need, because in 5 years, when that commercial loan is due, that balloon, is it going to be at 4% or 4.5%? And I'm still at a 3.5%. So that's when I looked at some other things, and the hotels were at a 10%. 11%. So it was easy for me, but the hardest transition was just how different hotels are than multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
100 unit multifamily it's not the same as a 100 key hotel. A lot of difference. You're now a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You basically doing a daily lease. Versus, 12-month lease and a lot more, I'm sure, labor intensive with, the cleaning staff and if you have a kitchen and all the rest of it. Yeah.
But but that's why in general, hotels will do better than the multifamilies. Now, for all those listeners that like to do the flip, put the lipstick on multifamily and get rid of them in a year, you really can't do that too much on hotels because it's a business. But I love the fact that, like you said, I charge my rent every day.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on economic factors, for instance, here in Arizona, the Super Bowl's coming. So instead of $110 a night, we're now $360.
Yeah.
For that time period, spring training. So I get to just bounce around, and an 81 room hotel where you get the rent every day, it grosses a lot more than the multifamily.
You had a funny story on that. At one time we flew some people into the Kentucky Derby, and everything sold out in the area, like you're saying, just because of the supply demand issue. Mm-hmm. And what used to be a Holiday Inn, the sign had actually been removed, but the stain was behind it. You could tell it was a defranchised Holiday Inn, 60s vintage, cigarette burns and all the linoleum countertops. I'm sure it was a $29 hotel, and it was $299 for that night. It went up 10 times, and the next day I'm sure it was back to $29 when that was when you had other options again. But yeah, that's like you said, it's just the kind of day of pricing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, if you'll pay it, I'll charge it.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. So Michael, as you were making the transition, and you mentioned, when you were doing the multifamily, all that was just your own money. And then as you tell me whether you want to talk about that or whether it's maybe when you're shifted over to the hotels, just about some obstacles you had to overcome.
Yeah, great question. The obstacles were, it's kind of like my PG days on, it's easy to buy something, but then how do you control it? How do you do things? It was very easy for me to, okay, attorneys, here's 15 grand for syndication, an operating agreement. But then I was like, okay, what exactly is a syndication? How does it work? And he's asking me questions. Well, what kind of waterfall and preferred? And I'm like, huh? So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do it yet. Let's take a step back. Let me go ask some of my mentors and really get what is a syndication. There's two different types of syndications. There's all these different layers. So that was a struggle, a learning process. But then you get into, now I am eligible for SBA loans. And then you realize, okay, yeah, okay, cool. Give me an SBA loan. And then I get the 40 different things that the SBA is requiring that I'm like, man, I don't have no clue, what do you, 5-year performance and I just this whole complex thing of now you're buying a business, and they're like, oh, by the way, how much experience do you have in hotels? I say, oh, okay, hey, remember, buddy, that is helping me out. How much it costs for you to get on this loan? To be the expert.
Yeah.
So there's things that you don't think about that are really good teaching points on why you can't just make the jump. Mm-hmm. And why you need to learn about all the different things. It's just a lot more complex.
Yeah, I was just saying, from your airline days, you had plenty of experience staying in them, but it was the actual. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I have a whole new perspective.
But that's the key to pretty much anything, is to really, you see something you want to go after, but at the same point in time, know what you're walking into, know what the language is, know what the rules are, what the boundaries are, and what the opportunities are. And, obviously, kind of that's where you had to educate yourself in a new area to be able to go in there and competently do it. So, yeah,
and
makes sense.
You always get, I tell everyone, no matter if you're going from single family and multifamily, from flips to rentals, get a mentor. I would rather pay the money for a mentor than pay the money to lose it because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, Michael, did you think back? I know you said there was a couple like aha moments as you transitioned there, but can you think back what your first victory was that kind of solidified the fact that you were on the right path?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple. When at first I was like, oh man, the biggest victory was, believe it or not, when COVID started to happen on one of the hotels. We had made a decision. One of the decisions you have to make is not, okay, I want a Marriott or a Hilton or a Wyndham, but location, the drivers, because now with multifamily, people are just going to live wherever. I mean, you can just pretty much put a multifamily, buy a multifamily, but the drivers are what drives someone to that hotel. And there's one that was just kind of a small town outside of Arizona. And we're like, oh man, I was having a hard time with this hotel because I was just, why would anyone ever stay in this town? And it ended up being our best revenue hotel during COVID. And that was kind of the victory of it completely switched my mindset on what type of hotel and where that hotel is located, and the mindset of the people during downturns and when it hits the fan on where people like to stay. So that was kind of a victory of, wow, okay, now we're going to be focusing on this type of hotel, just off the highway, truck driver parking. And I was like, I don't want truck driver, on the highway. And what? Yes, I do. I do now.
Yeah.
So that was kind of when I learned that, okay, that model was good. And then you start saying, okay, you know what? We're going to take a chance on this. It's just making that leap of faith, saying that these drivers are going to stay around. I was going to say, it's like, man, if you just had a hotel next to a university, you are set. That is, unless they're not going to school for 2 years.
Right.
And the bank still wants their money. So it's just, those thought processes were kind of like the biggest aha for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously the pandemic, there was a black swan event that no one had modeled. I mean, it wasn't like, oh yeah, it just worked fine. Everything shut down for 2 years. Right.
It taught me, everyone's like, woe's me during COVID. I said, you know what? I am now much better hotelier because of COVID, because you're fat, dumb, and happy when everything's going well. But when you have to pull up the pants and say, okay, how can I make money? Because this hotel just went to 8% occupancy.
Wow.
Then you open it up, you do day use, you just sit there and how can I do this? Because I have investors that, that I have to account for. So it was interesting. It was a lot of fun the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'm sure get very creative on that, like you said.
You do.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
excellent. Yeah,
I'm glad
there's
things
a
are.
lot of stories in that. Yeah,
Yeah,
A lot of stories.
I'm glad things are doing better now. Certainly in the hospitality space, you feel like it's fully recovered, or is it still recovering?
It's in certain sectors. I am worried because of inflation. All these other factors. It was like, okay, COVID. Wow, that sucks. I have to deal with COVID. COVID's over now. No one wanted to work. It's the great resignation. I'm like going, oh my God, now what? Well, guess what? Airfare, gas, the economy, the inflation. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So it's not recovered fully, but it is a lot better because people are just like, now they're like going, I don't care. We're getting out of the house, and they're going. The corporate part's not back yet.
Right.
So that's hurt. We have hotels right in a beautiful corporate park, and it's it could be better.
Yeah, I've noticed through my travels. I mean, even the last year, 9 months since most of us come out of the recovery, there still seems a lot of staffing issues. Like kitchens are closed certain times, and they can't. It's still like you're saying that it seems like the people haven't, even the workers haven't fully come back to a lot of their previous jobs, or it's hard to staff them.
Yeah, and this younger generation, they bounce more. Well, I'm not, I get good pay and I like it, but I'm not happy this week. So all of a sudden, boom, they quit. And so they're always, it's like they're always trying to find something that makes them feel special or makes them feel happy instead of this 9-to-5 job, how are you going to be happy? So it has, and when you have housekeepers come to you, it's like, I want $25 an hour and Fridays off, or else I'm quitting. And I'm like, okay, bye. Because you can't do that. Well, I can go to McDonald's for this and get Fridays off. I'm like, well, no, you're going to smell like French fries at 2:00 in the morning. Grease, and you work for me from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. You make decent money. It's just they're just out there.
And somebody's working Friday. I mean, McDonald's are open on Friday, so somebody's working. I mean,
and they're seniority based, so they're like, right. They didn't know what they're talking about. I was like, have fun, McDonald's. You'll be back here in a couple of weeks.
Maybe if you hand out participation trophies, you can keep them around
every day.
You're so day. Special. Here you get a gold button.
Yeah. Here's yours, like everyone else's.
Yeah, exactly. So, Michael, maybe in the hotel world, is there a funny story that's happened to you recently that you could share?
Oh, there's so many of them. My gosh, people are just nuts. The one that comes up is during the free money era of our economy. What a lot of people don't realize is a lot of the homeless people also got free money. So you didn't even have to be working; just everyone got money. And how they got money was through like a prepaid Visa card, credit card. So now everybody can go in, and the homeless people can go in and get a hotel room. Well, they're not grateful. They now just become the homeless person and try to take everything out of your hotel room. But there's this one couple. They met back up. He wanted to get back together with her, so he bought her a baby pig, and he thought that she would like this pig, and they brought it in the hotel room, and she didn't want the pig. Nobody wanted the pig, so they ended up they got drunk or high, and then they just left. And couple of days later, because we were short on staff and we were just doing rooms as we needed to, we finally get this phone call from the lady. I guess she came out of her drug-induced whatever, said, "Hey, I think we left our pig in the room." And we're like, oh no. So my general manager who's kind of skittish anyway at this hotel. He's a younger guy that doesn't like to be surprised. He opens the door and he's like tiptoeing around, and he can't find this pig. And finally, he goes to lift up the pillow, and it was inside the pillowcase, between the pillow and the pillowcase. It let out a squeal like you didn't know. He about fainted on the floor, about screaming out, and he starts screaming, runs out, and maintenance guy had to come back in, and they took a while to corral this pig. And then they call me up and they said, "What do I do with this pig?" I'm like, I
lost and found.
Lost and found, right? I don't know. Call the Humane Society, or you guys want it, So, and that's just one of the many stories. You're just like going, these things can't happen in hotel rooms, right? I mean, it's just a pig.
The new mascot.
Oh yeah, we should have kept it as a mascot. It was a country inn and suite, so hey, that's the country for you.
That's right. They brought that part back
pig.
in.
Oh wow!
Oh, that's funny. Like you said, you can't write that stuff.
You can't write some of this stuff. No.
Well, Michael, where are you today in your journey? You said it sounded like you transitioned to pretty much full time hotel and doing syndication on that side, expanding that. Is that where you're looking to grow your emphasis now?
It is. I would be in the process of building two right now, some ground ups, but 3/4 interest rate every quarter has kind of put that on hold, because I just don't want to. I'm trying to be smart. I don't want to pay all of this money, especially with the supply and demand, because some of the places that we're looking at building, it might take a little bit to get the supplies up there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of waiting it out. I want to be really smart. One's going to be a boutique mixed use. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is going to be there's an area in the different towns where there's a lot of industrial growth, because it's just all farmland or desert out here in Arizona. So they're out. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to make that smart decision. I'm letting the investor list just keeps growing, but I'm just kind of playing that waiting game, seeing if maybe the new house, maybe they can everyone can come together and figure it out.
Right. It is hard. I mean, without any idea what, forward cost of capital is going to be, especially in the ground up development. Like you said, if you're, 6, 9, 12 months out, trying to project what you have to have for that. Yeah.
And even on some current buying, just the banks right now are like, if it was it's actually now easier to get a loan on multifamily and hospitality. They're like going, they also are trying to take a cautious look and say, I don't know if I want to fund hospitality right now, because they don't know what's going on, in the next couple quarters.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I mean, even like the agency, Fannie or Freddie, a lot of those guys are like 50% now on loan to value.
Yeah.
It's really come down in the last 12 months.
Yeah. With a personal guarantee. If you're in, some of the commercial, 50% down, personal guarantee, firstborn son.
Yeah. What is your business model? Are you mainly doing ground up construction on the new hotels? You buying existing ones in the franchise?
Yeah, we've been buying existing. I've talked to. It's interesting. You get to know some of these franchise people, and there's this one franchise in particular that keeps wanting to take me out to lunch, and they're saying, and some of my investors are saying, that a new concept is kind of like a flip on hospitality. And what I mean by that is you go out and buy an older that that area is going to be coming up. Might be an opportunity zone. Might be eligible for like a USDA loan, just come more rural. But you take that older hotel and basically gut it, put a new franchise on it, all new case goods, all new PIP, everything new. And then they're now more of the stock market type investor that will go in and buy it, because when you look at REITs and things like that, stock market, they don't do a lot of ground up because they need a return now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They don't do a lot of the long-term rehabs because they want that. They don't care if it's 2% or 4% because their whole portfolio evens out. But some of the people that I've talked to, that's kind of like a thing that people are trying to do now, because there's a lot of the older ones that just aren't making it through COVID. They just never survived.
Yeah. Wow. Michael, as you, is there anything that you do personally or perhaps through your business that you can share that you do to try to give back and help others?
Yeah, great question. And that's probably the best thing that it's, thank God that I've made some money, because just being able to make a difference in people's lives is just wonderful. Because of where I'm at, I'm on the board of what's called the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation, and on the Arizona chapter. And what we do is, if there's a fallen armed force member or federal officer and they're fallen in the line of duty, their kids get a college scholarship.
Wow.
And most of the time that will be the first person to ever go to college in that family, because they're enlisted people. We just gave one. He was a Navajo police officer, and that was they're federal. They're considered federal. Mm-hmm. He was hit, texting driver. He had pulled someone over on the side of the highway. Texting driver wiped him out. 21-year-old wife and a 6-month-old baby. And we knocked on their door and said, guess what? You'll never have to worry about this child's education. And, so that's very special to me, being a veteran. Yes, I'm under 80, but I'm a Rotarian.
Good.
So a lot of people say, what? You're too young to be in Rotary. That's kind of like an inside joke with the Rotarians, but I do that. And I'm actually going to be president next year of our club. And there's just so much that they do, worldwide and locally. So it's just, I've been blessed with being able to give back and have the time to be on boards and things like that at the charities.
Excellent.
That's great. Yeah. Well, Michael, is there something you've recently implemented in your business that's helped you grow and scale?
Yes, there's always things. Number one, my focus is whatever you guys do in your lives, make sure you have the mindset of it's not about money, because the money will get there. Number one is it could be freedom. It's like, what is your why? And to have a mentor sit down and he goes, what is your why? Why are you dealing with all this stress and all this sort of stuff and just learning and growing? And if each one of your listeners can figure out their why and not make it because I want to be a millionaire. And, for me, it was, I wanted to build a life that I didn't need a vacation from. Mm-hmm. And that was my focus. How do you get that? Well, as soon as I learned that I needed to spend the money to delegate tasks, and I found out what my unique ability is. My unique ability is not paying bills and doing accounting and doing all that sort of stuff. So I got virtual assistants. I got other people to help me to take the load off so that I can now focus on the big stuff. That was one of the biggest things. When you're starting out, you want to do everything yourself because you don't want to spend any money out. But it wasn't until you start saying, okay, you know what? It's worth it to spend the money, to delegate things, to free up your time so that you can go out and make that money.
Right. Mm-hmm. The highest and best use of your time. Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
It's nice in the beginning. I mean, like I said, everybody does the same thing, right? They want to control everything. And I think some of I think there's a benefit to it, but like I said, you have to know when to make that transition, because at least now you know all the aspects of the business, right? So you can still delegate it, but you know how it's supposed to run because you've done it yourself for at least a period of time.
Yeah. Now I do the weekly meetings.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
instead of 5, 6, 10 times a day, and then paying bills, you know, looking at the calendars, doing all this sort of stuff. And hey, what's your new project? I don't know. It's paying bills is my next project. You know?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Michael, what advice would you share with somebody who's considering making a path change?
Get a mentor. There's a lot of books. There's a lot of podcasts like these. There's a lot of seminars. Pay attention to the seminars. Some of them are junk. Mm-hmm. Some of them are absolutely wonderful. Do your research on seminars. But don't do it alone. I've made that mistake. And if you think that you can do it alone and you don't have any experience, believe me, there's a better chance you will end up almost failing or failing. Might as well just spend the money, take the time, get a mentor. I'm very successful. I still have mentors. I still have business coaches, mental coaches. Do it. You know, the business coach is like, this is how you run your business. You now, Mike, have a business. You're not just a real estate investor. The mental coach, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? What is your unique ability? Okay, I don't know. You know, so they teach you on the mental side of how to just deal with it, how to have a calendar, all these different things that really I wouldn't have been a success if it wasn't for people saying, you know, it's very different going from a 9-to-5 job to sitting in front of a computer all day long. You know, right. How many hours do you spend on Facebook and LinkedIn and all these sort of things? So they set me down and had a default calendar every day. At 8 a.m. I do this, 8:30 I do this, at 10 o'clock I do this. And unless something's on fire, I don't stray from my default calendar. I'm allowed on LinkedIn 30 minutes every couple of days, and you stick with it. That's how you become successful and not get frayed out to the edges.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's huge, that time management. Because there's so many different theories on that. One that some people you create a list and then just have things to cross off, right? I mean, it does the easy things first, and then you just keep pushing things out and out, and like you said, you never get to focus really on what you need to be focused on, and that keeps you very disciplined by having the segmented blocks. And here's the time to devote to this, and it's mapped out, so you're going to cover the things you need to cover.
Yep, absolutely. I don't do any podcasts. I don't do any fun stuff on Mondays. Mondays is making money day, and it's Mondays. It's grinding out. How can I do this? How can I research this? No one bugs me. It's just, and you stick to it.
Right. Yeah. I think it's great advice. Well, Michael, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out and learn more about what you're doing?
Sure. Website. My company is Gateway Private Equity Group, and it's Gateway PE. P is in private, E is in equity, gatewaype.com. LinkedIn, Michael Stohler, Stohler. Those are the two best ways. And we do have a podcast ourselves that touches on some hotel stuff and other different things. It's the Richard Geek.
Richard Geek?
Yeah, okay. RICHER Geek. I'm a geek, and we all want to get a little richer.
There you go.
Well, excellent. We'll make links available in the show notes below. Well, Michael, we really want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show. Really enjoyed the conversation and wish you continued success.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Richard, take care.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael, for being on. We'd also like to thank our listeners. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great shows like our show today with Michael Stohler. And also remember, everybody, Park Capital Partners has two things going on. First, we have the Park Capital Partners Value Add Fund, which is a 506c fund open to accredited investors today. And we also have the Park Capital Partners Foundation. The way that works very quickly, it is a 501(c) nonprofit. And the way that works real quickly is that Park Capital Partners funds the operations of it so that all the money donated goes to do its best work, which is to help others. Second, we donate corporately. Third, we donate personally. And finally, when investors invest with us, we donate we make a donation to honor that investor to a charity of their choice from a list of 15, including Wounded Warrior and other various wonderful projects and charities. So, please continue to reach out to us. Happy to have a conversation anytime. ParkCapitalPartnersLLC.com. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.